Today we are going to solve O-Level Physics Paper Code 5054 Paper 2 Variant 1 May-June 2011, and questions that we are going to solve today are question 1 to question number 4 of section A. From 5 to 8 of section A we will solve in the next session, and also for the section B we will solve in the next session. Now question 1. Figure 1.1 shows the speed time graph for a car. Here we have plotted a graph in between time and speed. So this gradient will represent acceleration, and the area under this curve, area under these lines, will represent the distance covered by the object. At time t is equal to 15 seconds, the brakes are applied and the car comes to rest with uniform deceleration. Part A, first part, state the speed of the car just before the brakes are applied. The brakes are applied at time t is equal to 15 seconds. At time t is equal to 15 seconds. At time t is equal to 15 seconds, the speed of the car is 11.5 meters per second. It is 10, it is 10, it is 15. So 2 small square represent 1 meter per second. So here, starting from 10, we have 3 small square. So up to this point, it will be 11.5 meters per second. So our answer is 11.5 meters per second. Next part, explain what is meant by uniform deceleration. What is meant by deceleration? Deceleration means if the speed is decreasing, or we can say if the gradient in between the speed and the time is decreasing, then it is called deceleration. What is meant by uniform deceleration? Uniform deceleration means when the gradient is decreasing at a constant rate. Here it is given that the gradient is decreasing at a constant rate. So this line, this gradient will represent deceleration. So what we have to write here? Decrease in speed or decrease in the gradient represent decrease in acceleration, and the constant decrease of gradient in speed time graph represents uniform deceleration. Part B. A lorry travels at a constant speed of 18 meters per second for 15 seconds. At the time t is equal to 15 seconds, the brakes are applied and the lorry slows down with the same deceleration as the car. On figure 1.1, draw the speed time graph for the lorry. Here it is given the lorry is moving at a constant speed of 18 meters per second for 15 seconds. At 15 seconds, brakes are applied. When the brakes are applied, there is deceleration. And here it is given the deceleration is same as the deceleration of car. Means the gradient in between the lorry and the car will be at the same angle. Now here we have to draw the gradient at time t is equal to 15 seconds, the brakes are applied. So it is the point where the brakes are applied. Now where will be the 18 meter per second? It is 15, it is 20. Two small square represent 1 meter per second. So it is 16, it is 17, and it is 18. So 18 is up to this point. So here we have to draw a line in a horizontal axis up to which point? Up to the time t is equal to 15 seconds. At time t is equal to 15 seconds, the brakes are applied. So here we have deceleration. Not the deceleration of the lorry and the deceleration of the car is at the same rate. So here the distance in between these two gradient will be same. The angles of these two gradient will be same. So here we have plotted the graph in between time and speed for the lorry. Next part 2, explain how your graph shows that while braking the lorry travels further than car. Lorry travel further than car means lorry travel more distance than car. Here the area under the curve of the lorry is more as compared to area under the curve by the car. So the distance covered by the lorry is more as compared to distance covered by the car. Now what we have to write down here? Area under the curve in speed time graph for lorry is more than the area under the curve than that of the car. So we can say lorry travel further than the car. Okay, next question. Question number 2. Question number 2. In figure 2.1 shows a skydiver falling vertically downward at terminal velocity. What is meant by terminal velocity? Here acceleration is 0 and the object is moving with a constant speed, or we can say here the resultant force is equal to 0. That's why acceleration is 0 and the object is moving with a constant speed. Means here if the object is moving with a terminal velocity, then at this stage this x will be equal to y. This downward force will be equal to this upward force y. Arrows x and y show the two main forces acting on the skydiver. Part A, first part, state the name of the force x and the name of the force y. Here this x, downward force, it is gravitational force, and this y, this upward force is the frictional force of air. So here x is gravitational force and y is frictional force due to air, or we can write air resistance. Next part, explain why force y act upward. This force y, this resistive force always act in the opposite direction of motion. Since here the skydiver is moving in the downward direction, so the frictional force will be in the opposite direction, means it will be in the upward direction. So frictional force act in opposite direction of the motion. Part B. When the skydiver first started to fall, forces x and y are unbalanced. Describe and explain the effect of the unbalanced forces on the motion of the skydiver. When there are unbalanced forces means there is a resultant force, and when there is a resultant force there will be an acceleration in the direction of the resultant force. Now here we have two forces x and y. It is given here these two forces are unbalanced. Since these two forces are unbalanced, so there will be a resultant force, and because of resultant force there will be an acceleration in the direction of the resultant force. Here this downward force, gravitational force, is more as compared to the upward force, the air resistance. Since here downward force is more, so the resultant force will be in the downward direction and the object will accelerate in the downward direction. Now what we have to write here? Downward force, gravitational force is larger than upward force means air resistance. So resultant force is in downward direction, and because of the resultant force of the skydiver, it will accelerate in the downward direction. Next part, state what happened to the size of force x and size of force y as the skydiver fell and reached terminal velocity. At terminal velocity, the downward force x is equal to upward force y. When this downward force and upward force are equal, they are same and in opposite direction, the resultant force will be 0. When resultant force is 0, acceleration will be 0 and the object will move with a constant speed, that is called terminal velocity. So what we have to write here? Downward force remains same. This downward force means force x, it remains same. The upward force increases. This y gradually increases. In the start, in the beginning, this y was 0. Now this force y gradually increases, and after some time these two forces becomes equal, making resultant force 0. When these two forces becomes equal, then the resultant force will be 0 because these two forces are in the opposite direction and we will get the terminal velocity. So here downward force remains same, upward force increases and both forces become equal, making resultant force 0 and terminal velocity is achieved. Question number 3. In figure 3.1, shows part of a small hydroelectric system that generates electricity from moving water. Okay, here we have a system by which we are generating electricity. Part A. Every minute, water with kinetic energy 14,000 joules emerges from the pipe. The water turns a turbine that is connected to the generator. Half of the kinetic energy of the water is given to the generator. Number 1. Calculate the power input to the generator. Power is given as energy over time. Now the energy given to generator is half of this kinetic energy. Means the energy provided to the generator is 14,000 over 2 means 7,000 joules. So energy provided to the generator is 7,000 joules and the time is 1 minute. 1 minute means 60 seconds. So here time is 60 seconds and energy is 7,000. So here we have to calculate the power. Power will be equal to 7,000 over 60. 7,000 over 60 is equal to 116 or approximately we can say it is equal to 120 watts. So here our answer is 120 watts. Next part, suggest a reason why only some of the kinetic energy of the water is given to the generator. Here we have provided half of the kinetic energy to the generator. This half of the energy may be utilized to overcome the frictional force. So here what we have to write? Some of the kinetic energy of water is lost to overcome the frictional force. Part B. Hydroelectric system use sources of renewable energy. Number 1. State what is meant by renewable energy. We have studied two types of energy resources. One is renewable, second is non-renewable. Non-renewable energies are those that cannot be recovered easily, whereas renewable energies are those that can be recovered easily. It is asked what is meant by renewable energy. So renewable energy means the energy that can be recovered easily. Next part, state one source of non-renewable energy. Non-renewable energies are coal, gas, oil. So here we can write any one. So here I have written coal. So coal is an example of non-renewable energy. This coal we cannot recover easily. If once it is utilized, then it cannot be recovered easily. Question number 4. Water at a temperature of 16 degrees centigrade enters an ice making machine and emerges as ice cube at a temperature of -5 degrees centigrade. The melting point of ice is 0 degrees centigrade. Part A. Calculate the total energy removed from 1 kilogram of water as it cools from 16 degrees centigrade, changes into ice and then cools to -5 degrees centigrade. Here specific heat capacity of liquid water is given, specific latent heat of fusion of water is given and specific heat capacity of ice is given. Here we have to calculate the total heat lost by the water. Now total heat lost by the water will be equal to heat lost by the water when the temperature changes from 16 to 0 degrees centigrade. Then at 0 degrees centigrade, this water is converting to ice. So here again some heat is removed to convert this water into ice. When all the water is converted to ice, its temperature again start to fall. The temperature again decrease from 0 to -5 degrees centigrade. Now during this temperature 0 to -5 degrees centigrade again it will lose some amount of heat. So here the total amount of heat removed will be in three parts. The first part when the temperature changes from 16 to 0 degrees centigrade. The second part when the water is converting to ice. And the third part when the temperature changes from 0 to -5 degrees centigrade. The amount of heat loss when the temperature changes from 16 to 0 degrees centigrade, we have to use a formula mc delta T, where m represents mass, c represents specific heat capacity, and delta T means change in temperature. Now here mass is 1 kilogram, specific heat of water. It is given here 4.2 into 10 power 3, and here it is change in temperature. Change in temperature means here temperature is 16 and temperature changes from 16 to 0 degrees centigrade. So change in temperature delta T will be 16 minus 0. So it is M, it is C, it is delta T. Now here, when the temperature is at 0 degrees centigrade, this water begins to convert in ice. When the water begins to convert in ice, temperature will not change. Temperature will remain same. Here heat will be decreased because here water is converting to ice. Here liquid state is changing to solid state. When liquid state is changing to solid state, here again the heat is removed from water. Now here the amount of heat removed at this stage will be equal to M into L, where M is the mass and L is the latent heat of fusion. Now mass of water is 1 kilogram and latent heat of fusion of water is given 3.4 into 10 power 5. Now in the third part, heat is again lost. Heat is lost when the temperature changes from -5 to 0 degrees centigrade. Here, to calculate the heat loss, we have to use the formula mc delta T. M means mass, mass is given 1 kg. C means specific heat. Here we will use the specific heat capacity of ice because here now it is converted to ice. Specific heat of ice is given here 2.1 into 10 power 3, and here the change in temperature means the starting temperature is 0 and the final temperature is -5. So change in temperature will be equal to 5 degrees centigrade. So here change in temperature is 5 degrees centigrade. Now by solving this one, we get the answer 4.2 into 10 power 5 joules. Next part B, using ideas about molecules. Explain why energy is needed to change ice into water. When it is converting from ice to water, the temperature remains same. Temperature do not change. Since temperature remains same means the kinetic energy remains same. So why we have to provide the energy? We have to provide the energy to increase the potential energy. We have to provide the energy to increase the intermolecular spaces in between the molecules. So what answer we have to write here? During melting, temperature remains constant means kinetic energy of the molecules are unchanged. The amount of energy required is to increase the distance in between the molecules, means to increase the potential energy of the molecules. Next part, suggests why less energy is needed to change ice into water than to change the same mass of water into steam. When we convert ice into water, we have to provide energy. When we convert water into steam, we have to provide energy. But when we convert water into steam, we have to provide more energy. Why more energy? Because here in steam, the molecules are far away from each other as compared to liquid. So what we have to write here? In gases, molecules are far away from each other as compared to liquid. So more energy is required. Okay. Now we have completed up to question number 4. For remaining part, we will solve in the next session. Thank you very much.